Hello friends, welcome. Friends, the government of India came out with a telecom package in 2021. The whole purpose of that package was to bail out Vodafone Idea. So, the framework of that package was that certain amount of debt will get converted into equity so that the debt from VI's books can be released and therefore the BI can grow into a healthy company. But nobody in their wildest dream could have believed or could have speculated a company like Airtel will be seeking to convert their dues as well into equity. When Airtel wrote its first letter, everybody was surprised. Now, friends, on 4th of May, there is another article which says that Airtel is continuously pestering the government to convert their 41,000 crores of AGR dues into equity. Now, friends, today the reason I'm doing this video is that there have been a lot of conspiracy theory about why Airtel is doing that, because when that letter was written by Airtel, everybody was surprised. Nobody thought that Airtel will seek to convert their AGR dues into equity. And the reason is pretty simple. Because if you look at the past practices or the trend that Airtel has been following, they have been retiring debt which are of a higher interest payment. Right? For example, if you look at all the spectrum payments, and if this is the press release which Bharti came out on March 26, 2025, where they said that they have retired all their spectrum debt, which is having an interest which is more than 7.22%. So if you see here, whatever is left out is with having a weighted average interest of 7.22%, and that value is of 2021 and 22 auction of 52,000 crores. Now, AGR debt is also having a interest payment value of 8%. So the question that comes is that why Airtel is not retiring its AGR dues? Why it is insisting on the government to convert this into equity? Friends, does it make any sense in real sense? And that is why this whole conspiracy theory which is going around, that why Airtel is doing it, because historically it has been retiring debt of higher interest, and this 41,000 crore is nothing because they have already retired each and of their spectrum debt, barring that 52,000 crores of 7.22% weighted average interest, right? So that's what we are going to discuss, friends, in this video. And you will now understand that why Airtel is being pushing for converting this 41,000 crores of debt into equity, which is AGR, but with an interest payment of 8%, right? So without wasting any further time, let's go to my slide deck. And in this slide deck, I have created a structured presentation to answer this specific question. And you will get a full and complete answer. All your doubts will get clear and you will not do any kind of speculation. Okay. So let's go into this presentation. So be with me till the end. Okay. So the title of this presentation is why Airtel is pushing for AGR dues to be converted into equity. This is an analysis which will be a deep dive analysis and every doubt of yours will get clear. Central question is, Airtel is a healthy cash flow and a low debt company, right? So it doesn't have to, ask for any equity conversion. It can pay off its debt and it can done away with it, as it has done with other high interest obligation debts. Still, it wants to convert 41,000 crores into equity. Why would such a strong company seek this? This presentation will explore the rationale behind this move, right? Now, understanding the AGR issue. Now, it is important for those viewers who have not seen my other presentation, are completely clueless what I'm talking about, right? So they might be disinterested and might leave this video at this particular point of time. I don't want anybody to go without going through the full presentation, because this is very valuable. It is in the interest of each and every individual of this country. It matters that whole telecom sector is going to get impacted by all these decisions. So therefore, I like to give you a premiere as to what is this AGR issue all about. See, AGR full form is adjusted gross revenue. Now, at the time of 1999, the government of India came out with a migration package, because the telecom companies which were in operation, before 2000, they were facing a lot of problems. They were not able to function properly because of huge commitment on license fee. So the government thought that if they might take the companies out of this burden and convert this into from a fixed regime to a revenue share regime, then the telecom sector will thrive, right? So that was the whole purpose. So they came out with the migration package, and then they caused a migration of the telecom companies from fixed license fee regime to revenue share. But the problem was that revenue share means what? A share of a certain percentage of their total revenue, right? Total revenue means when the mobile company is generating revenue, government wants to collect a portion of the revenue as license fee, right? But the problem was that the definition of revenue was left vague. And there was a litigation from year 2000 till 2020 before the Supreme Court came out with the judgment as to what should be the definition of the base on which the license fee will be calculated. And because of this battle, which lingered on for 20 years, the companies finally lost and huge amount of payments got accumulated. Not only principal, but also interest and penalties and interest on penalties. Because the companies thought that they would be paying the license fee on those activities which requires a license. But those activities which do not require a license, there was no need to pay license fee. And the government wanted to collect a revenue or a license fee on the total revenue. And that was the debate. So this is just to give you a premium so people are aware of this. So this impacted each and every company, but every licensee, because there are different type of licenses, mobile companies are there, their ISP licenses are there, the PSU licenses are there. But the Supreme Court, when they came out with the judgment, they somehow gave relief to PSUs and did not talk much about the private ISP licenses. Only focus was on mobile operators. So there is a battle going on between the private ISP license, because the government actually has levied a demand on them. But somehow those demands are going to get finally settled. I am fully confident, because there is already a net magic case in TDSAT which has given a judgment in favor of the ISP operators. So what the main argument is, they're saying that the ISP operators, who also is laced with a similar kind of controversy, that their total revenue has become the base for calculating license fee, they are asking for a similar treatment for PSU ISP operators, because they're saying that the PSU ISP operators dues can be waived off. Why not the private ISP operators dues are also waived off? And that is a quite reasonable argument to make, and I think that will get resolved. So what will not get resolved is the mobile operators, because Supreme Court has been very harsh on the mobile operators, right? So the key telecom players, which are the mobile operators affected by the AGR dues, are Reliance Jio. Very, very simple, because Reliance Jio, it was a new company, so their dues were only very, very small, 195 crores. So they paid off and they were very happy. BSNL also got affected, but BSNL dues, the government somehow settled by doing a cashless transaction, converted that into equity. Bharti Airtel and Vodafone were the most affected, because they are companies which are functioning, and there were other operators also, like Rcom, etc. They became bankrupt and they said that nothing doing, I can't pay anything to you. So all their dues are still hanging, right? So Bharti and Vodafone are the only two companies who have to pay. So what is the amount that they have to pay, right? So they have to pay an amount today, that principal which is standing is around 74,000 crores for Vodafone, and Airtel is 41,000 crores. But how these principal came into being is very important to understand. So when the AGR dues became, liable for payment, at that time, the government went to the Supreme Court and asked for a relaxed time period for payment, because government thought that this order of Supreme Court was very harsh. So Supreme Court did not listen to the government in totality. So they said that, okay, we are not going to listen to your 20 years deferred payment. We are going to give you a 10 years deferred payment, provided the company pay 10% of the dues upfront, and rest they can pay at 8% interest, right? Deferred payment for 10 years. And the last date, means the sunset date, is 31st March 2031. So Airtel paid 18,000 crores. Vodafone had paid 7,800 crores, right? And then during the moratorium period, when the telecom package was announced, there was an announcement of 4 years, nobody has to pay anything. AGR dues was not supposed to be paid, including some spectrum which was before the 2021 auction. Those deferred payment were also not liable for payment during the moratorium period. So, because nobody paid anything after having paid this, so these dues got accumulated because interest payments kept accumulating. Now, for Airtel, this number is 41,000 crores. For Vodafone Idea, this number is 74,000 crores. And the next payment is due on 31st March 2026 because the moratorium ends on September 2025, right? So, how do we know that the government is really interested in collecting this due from Airtel and Vodafone? Now, before we do the evaluation, right, we need to know how much Airtel has to pay, how much Vodafone has to pay, because they have to pay in 6 installment, because the end is what? 31st March 2031. So there are 6 installment left, and the amount is 41,000 crores for Airtel, and for Vodafone it is 74,000 crores. So I have made some calculations. So if I go to one of my articles which I have written earlier, and I'm going to show you the article, here I have calculated. See, Vodafone Idea's dues I have calculated. Roughly the installment comes out to be 16,000 crores and Airtel's installment comes out to be around 8,000 crores. So if you add this two together, the total installment value, right, at the end of the moratorium comes out to be 24,000 crores. So 24,000 crores is the due the government would expect in this financial year, FY26. And that is why it is important that what is that budget is telling us. Because if the government is expecting a collection of 24,000 crores from Airtel and Vodafone, because that's what the due, that is the deferred payment of AGR is going to be due after the moratorium ends. So that amount has to be seen in the budget. So what is that budget amount? That's what we have to investigate, right? How do we know that? So we have to go to the budget document. So there is a budget document here which you can see. Now, what is this budget document? Let me show you. This is the receipt budget of year 2025-26. Now, what is this receipt budget? This is for the non-tax revenue part. There are two types of revenues. One is tax revenue, another is non-tax revenue. You need to understand this so as to appreciate what I'm going to talk about. Otherwise, nothing you will understand. Okay. So there are two types of revenue which the government generates. One is tax revenue, another is non-tax revenue. In non-tax revenue, let me just show you my dashboard so that the things will become very, very clear. Otherwise, you will not understand anything, right? So let me just show you. This is the dashboard which I maintain on my website, Government India non-tax revenue. Not the tax part, non-tax. Now, non-tax revenue has got three different line items. One is interest payment, interest received, dividend profits, which is RBI's dividend profits. I don't want to get into, otherwise the video will get completely digressed. And there are 4 items: non-tax revenue for UT, and then there is one item called D, right? What is D? D is physical net, general service net, social service, and economic service net. Now, the key part, the key component of non-tax revenue is what? Dividend and profit and this economic service net, right? And under this economic service net, there is an item called other communication service, which I am going to show you here, which will tell us that whether the government is really interested in calculating, in collecting this AGR receipt. So look at this, other communication service for the budget of FY26. So in the budget of FY26, the amount that the government of India has kept is 82.4 crores, which is quite low compared to what they had kept in the earlier budget, which is FY25. So note this number. In the earlier budget, it was 1.23 lakh crores. In the budget of FY26, this number is 82.4 lakh crores, right? Now, you may say that this number, what story does it tell? It does not tell me any story whether the AGR is part of this budget or not. So for that, I have to do again some more triangulation. So let's go and do that, because friends, it is all about numbers, and therefore I'm going a little slow. Otherwise, what will happen? People will not understand anything. So there are different charts which you have to look into in order to get to an answer as to if this number, what the government of India has kept, includes that 24K receipt, which Vodafone Idea and Bharti have to pay after the moratorium is over, right? So that's what we are going to look at here. So for that, we have to understand what this number constitutes. What is this number constitute? Means what is this number made up of, this other communication service. Now, this is a little complicated, friends. And I'll tell you that it becomes so confusing because DOT does not follow any norm. I do not know how these people report. I have really got mad, when I see this number, and it becomes very difficult and challenging to deal with this number. And I'll tell you the reason why. So before I go and investigate this, let's look at the chart. The chart which should give you the answer. The story should be clear from this chart. This is the chart which is the non-telecom, other communication service chart, because this chart is titled DOT's license and spectrum free trend including auction, and DOT publishes this in their dashboard every year, every quarter, and I extract this from their dashboard, this number, and I have put it right in front of you. So when I talk about other communication service here, this number should exactly match. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This grand total should exactly match. Now, this grand total is made up of what? Total license fee and total spectrum fee. Now, friend, this total license and total spectrum fee is very nuanced. Because normally what you will understand from this, you will say that, license fee 8%, spectrum fee is whatever the SUC charge, that should get added and this number should show up like this. No. This number actually more nuanced. This include auction and this include BSNL's notional payment and equity. But in every year, this number is not included for BSNL. Some year it is included, some year it is not included. That's why I'm saying that it is so confusing that you will not understand. But let's focus on the number which we know right in front of us and see whether that number matches, which is what? Actual of FY24. And let's see here what is the number of FY24. So FY24 number is here. What is it? 92.6, right? Can you see that? 92.6. It includes what? Total license fee of 36.3 and the total spectrum fee of 56, which include auction. So if you go here, where is that number? You see actual FY24 90.6 roughly matches, which means my understanding that this dashboard, which I'm showing you right here, which I collect from the DOT's dashboard, is the category which kind of maps to the other communication service because this number matches, right? Now come to this number, FY25. This number does not match. And why it does not match, friends? Because this 85.3K, because I'll tell you why this number does not match. I'm going to show you. This is what? This is the revised of FY25, which is 1.23 lakh crores, right? But here, if you see FY25 number is 85.3 crores, right? K crores. Why? Because they have added 30 something crores of BSNL, notional revenue on top of it. And that's why this number has become, this number that I'm showing you, this number has become 1.23 lakh crores. So BSNL numbers have been added in the budget and inflated it, which is more than what they're collecting in actual terms from the operators in license fee, spectrum fee, as well as an auction fee. And therefore, you can see that how the budget's numbers get inflated. Do you understand now, right? How difficult it is to basically go through this number. Now, let's look at this number. Now, there could be some inflation here also. I don't know, right? Maybe BSNL numbers have all been taken care of and there is no BSNL. But we know there is a license fee and a spectrum fee of a certain value. And we know that there is an auction payment which is due. And we know the trend. How do we know the trend of auction? Because the auction payments are here, right? Here. From here to here and here. You see? So, whenever you look at the auction payment, SUC is very nominal number, 4,000K. Right? 4,000K. So roughly there is a 50K of auction value, prepayment and everything is flowing in the government. Because note, this is in the period of moratorium. Still there is a collection from deferred payment from the auction, which was not part of the moratorium, and prepayment. So I am assuming that 50K is going to be the collection from auction because the moratorium is going to be over, deferred payments are going to get due, Reliance Jio has to make some payment, Bharti may make prepayment. So government might have taken into account 50k. So if 50k government has taken into account, and we know that the license is going to be, license per SUC roughly is going to be 32k. Therefore, this number that I'm showing you, 82.4k, which is for the other communication service here, 82 something, may not include AGR because there could be some buffering of BSNL also, which I don't know. So I am assuming that this does not include AGR. Since it does not include AGR, means that the government is not serious in collecting AGR dues in this fiscal. If the government is not serious in collecting AGR dues, means there could be two reasons. One is the government is going to give waiver, or the government is going to extend the deferred payment. And that is where Bharti is having this problem, right? So that is where this issue is. The issue is that the uncertainty that is going to creating for in this whole point about this whole thing either going to get waived off or it is going to get deferred. So Airtel is confused. Airtel does not know what to do with this debt of 41,000 crores. So Airtel is basically breaking and pulling its hairs, because either it wants to settle the debt. If it was certain that this debt has to be paid, then Airtel would have settled this debt. But Airtel doesn't know what the government is going to do. And it keep on accumulating. Let's say the government decide to give another 4 years of moratorium. Then this is going to get accumulated in Airtel's debt. This whole 41,000 crores will keep inflating in Airtel books every year, right? So Airtel is in fix now. So Airtel wants to settle this 41,000 crores. And that is what is the problem with Airtel. That is why why Airtel wants equity conversion, avoiding a ballooning dues from interest, because it does not know what the government is going to do. Either it is going to do waive off or may not be waive off. It will keep on giving moratorium till the time the Supreme Court sunset date of 31st March 2031 becomes due. And by the time Airtel for 6 years, 6 additional year, 8% will keep accumulating. Airtel will not be able to, because as soon as it retires this AGR debt, it will look like a fool, right? So that is, it wants to remove this uncertainty from their balance sheet. It wants to clean up the books from investor and credit risk and already clear up high interest payment dues, except for FY 21-22. And implication for Vodafone, everybody knows, because Vodafone does not matter for Vodafone. Vodafone wants that nothing to be paid, right? That 16,000 crores of the deferred payment or the AGR dues, which are going to be applicable in 31st March, Vodafone will not to pay. For Vodafone, it does not matter. So it matters for Airtel. It wants to clean up the dues, and that's why, friends, this articles that you are seeing is coming up every now and then. Now you understand, there is no conspiracy theory. Airtel knows that the government of India is not serious in collecting AGR dues. Either it will waive off or it will give further moratorium. And if it gets further moratorium and Airtel does not retire this 41,000 crores from its books, Airtel's principal is going to keep on accumulating at the rate of 8%. And this is going to become how much? Let me just show you the number right in front of you. 1.08 to the power of 6. Right? 1.58 multiplied by 41,000 crores. 65,000 crores. 65,000 crores is going to become, dues for Airtel by the end of 31st March 2031. And by the time the government has to decide what to do with AGR. That is the reason why, friends, Airtel is pushing for conversion of equity as far as AGR is concerned. Not for spectrum dues, by the way. Because spectrum is very clear, they have to pay. AGR, they don't know whether they have to pay. You understand now, friends? That's why I did this video. It took a little bit long because there are so many numbers. I have to explain the numbers. I can't do a video based on conjecture, friends. And that's why this video sometimes becomes long. Sorry for that. And thanks for listening till the end. And I'll come back with a new video on a new topic next time. Thank you very much.